Today I'm going to show you how I approach a preparatory sketch for a painting. What up friends, Liron here, and today I have something really cool for you that I didn't really show much of. So I posted a story on Instagram of the sketch process, the preparation process for a painting I did, and someone told me, dude, you have to post these as posts, not just as stories, because they're sometimes more expressive and more interesting than the final paintings. And so I decided I'd do that, and it got really good feedback. So I decided I'll share it as a video with you and actually show you the preparation process. I did make a video on that. I will link it up somewhere. I did make a video on the showing the preparation I went through, but I never showed the actual process of it. Okay, I just showed you, here's the sketch I made, here's some playing around with colors to see what will work, and etc, etc. So this time I actually wanted to show you the quick sketching process that I went through, because I think there's a lot of value in it. And I will of course post the painting process as well, and the drawing of the more final piece. But before that, I want to show you the preparatory sketch. Okay, so this will be the preparatory sketch, and probably tomorrow will be the actual drawing and painting. Maybe first time lapse and then real time. Okay, so I'm really excited. Let's get started. Okay, so apologies because just the first part of the drawing got cut off, or I think I just forgot to hit the record button, which is kind of silly. Apologies for that. I started as always by dividing the larger shapes. We have the sky, we have the ground. The ground is divided to the more foreground, which is the grass and the houses, and then we have some trees in the background. And I'm just starting out now by building the shapes of the little structures in the scene. When you do this kind of a preparatory sketch, I personally don't really care about the details, but I want to get the shapes right. I want to get the shapes and the values right. I try as much as possible to disregard thinking about the things I see as objects and just try to simplify them and get those right, as well as the composition I want. Okay, so for the most part, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't really change a lot of things in terms of the composition, and this one not really changing anything. And also in general, I don't tend to, because I find a reference that in which the composition just works. I don't tend to crop it out or something. So all I'm doing is placing stuff. Now all the lines you see across the ground line are just marking for me where I'm gonna put each structure. Okay, so once I place those in, I know, at least I can be calm and know that everything fits in here. Okay, now you can see the reference here is in color, but what happens is when you work in black and white and you just want to get the values right, it's super beneficial to turn it into black and white. And so you will see later on how I turned it into black and white, and then I work with that when I'm putting in the values. But now I'm putting in more the drawing. I do put in the super darks as I see them, like the shadow on the left of the chimney, because that's simpler. I can see that it's black, it's almost black. And I will put a link to the reference photo so you can see this. So now I'm working on that house that's just next to the main area of focus, a bit behind it. Building the shape slowly as I go along, connecting it with the next little structure. And again, the shape isn't necessarily the most accurate one. I do want to make sure it somewhat has resemblance to it and the values are accurate, because I'm gonna draw it again anyway, so the drawing doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a preparation for me to see how the values work. To be honest with you, the reason why I do this is to see how the values work together, because I'm quite confident in my drawing skills. This is not the area where I need to get my certainty. The drawing I know will turn out fine usually. The problem that I need to tackle the most is the values and sometimes the colors. If I'm not sure my color scheme will work, I may try also a color study. In this case I knew what I'm gonna do, so I didn't. So anyway, now the structure I'm drawing is the one on the far right, which is more close to us, so it will require some more attention and work later on when I paint. And by the way, I will show you the painting process as well of this one. Okay, you will see on the next video, you will see a time-lapse version of the drawing and painting of the final painting, and on the one afterwards you will see the real time. And now I switched to black and white because now I'm putting in the values. So the darkest values, one of the darkest values we have here is actually the trees in the background. Super dark. Putting it in just as I see it with the pencil. I'm not using any fancy technique. You'll see I'm really scribbling it inside there. I will go over it again and darken it yet again. Sometimes it takes some build up, so you may put in that initial layer of pencil, then you see that when you darken other things, the pencil needs to be yet again darker. Okay, what you're seeing is not time-lapse, it's real-time speed. I sketch rather fast. Apologies about that if it's challenging to follow, but at least now when I'm just putting in the values, it's a little easier because it's a slow process. So I'm filling it in. It's not a very exciting process. I do work in a small size, smaller than what the painting is gonna be like, because it's just very time consuming and the whole goal of it is to be quick, okay? So now I'm kind of moving to the next obvious shadow, which is the left side of that main house, main structure, shading in the left side. The roof itself also needs to be darker. I don't even remember if I darken it a lot in this specific example. I think not as much as in the reference. Maybe later on, just because I want to see the contrast for now. But the left side of the building is significantly darker. It's even darker than it appears, and the contrast is so starking with the wall on the right. You have some very strong shadows on the wall on the right from all the windows and stuff like that, and it's really visible. So now I already feel like the background needs more darkening, and I go ahead and just add another layer. I try to vary the direction just to get it to be darkened more easily. When you vary the direction, it's easier to darken, and also just to get a more even texture in the end. Although again, I'm not really worried about these kind of stuff because it's just a preparatory sketch. You see, sometimes I change the direction. Change it up. It has to be really easygoing and fun and light-hearted. You don't really need to feel too worried in this stage. So now I'm putting in those sharp details in the front wall. I'm basically painting in the darks. This is what I'm doing. I felt like the tree needed to be there because it obstructs some of the windows. And again, this is real speed. I go at it rather fast. Now, there are some trees at the front of the house that are even darker than the shaded side of the house. This is something important. You want to get that in as well. To have that, I just put it in as strong scribbles. Just really enjoying myself here. Putting in the grass at the bottom, which is much darker than it appears, especially if you look at the colored picture. Green tends to look really light in color, but it's actually, when you turn it black and white, you see the truth. It's super dark. Okay, it's much darker than what I did here, so I will go back and darken it yet again. So just something tricky to pay attention to. Because when I think about it, I see a lot of people make that mistake. They make their greens very light, and they're not. Okay, it's actually fascinating for me to see how fast I'm going with this one, because I usually don't sketch this fast, you know, but it's very interesting still to see. When I'm in the mindset of just preparatory sketch, I can work really fast. Okay, darkening a bit of the roofs. This roof, the front, should be fairly dark, but the other roofs are still lighter, but they're still significantly darker than you may think. If you keep them white, you have a problem because they're competing with the main wall of the largest house, which is white, and also the front house. Okay, the front sort of small structure on the right. These are the only two whites in this image. Okay, the house on the left, that's the main center of attention, and then the one on the right that's also fairly central because it's at the front. So yeah, so you want to make sure that all the other roofs are darkened at least a little bit. Okay, if you keep them white, again, they will compete with it, and it will just be incorrect. So you see I'm darkening all of the other roofs. And one thing you may notice right now, again, is the grass at the bottom really needs darkening. So I just go at it and add another layer. I probably should have made it even darker than that, but that's fine. That's for the sketch. I got the principle. As soon as you get the principle of the main values of the scene, you're basically good to go in terms of the painting. So that's just what I was trying to achieve. Sometimes as a preparation, after I'm done with this sketch, I will choose a specific object and focus on that for a while inside the scene. So I may take the main structure and draw it a lot more larger so that I can see more details and I can really understand what I'm drawing there. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I feel like this is enough. In this case, this was enough, and I didn't go ahead and work on the individual structures. Okay, getting in that small kind of a shed, I guess. It has a very unique shape with the roof. It's flat, and it really creates some interest. I'm sure actually the composition could have been better. I don't know exactly what I would change in it. It seems to me like there's too big of a distance between the two points of attention, the one on the right front and the one on the left mid-ground. And so if I could make it a little closer in some way, I would say it would be better. But I'm not too worried again. And now the left side of this roof should be shaded, although I don't think I shaded it too much. And this is basically almost done. Just adding that shadow on the left of the roof, trying to shade with the direction of the shingles, okay? Just to get that impression I want. So adding some more details here and there. I was sure the process is gonna end, but it is gonna end soon. There's not a whole lot to add here. And if you have a hard time really seeing it as a whole, you can stand a little backwards and you will see it, because it's very sketchy, or you can zoom out a bit from the sketch I did, and you will see more details. I'm basically adding shadows into the shadows right now. So you have the left side that's very shaded, but then again there are shadows on that. Okay. Some shadows to the trees, light comes from the right, shadows go to the left, and yet again I darken the grass a little more, and all that's left is basically just a few touches. I want to darken the grass a little more, add some of the windows I still haven't added, and add the darkest of the darks on that small structure to the right, okay, because there are some more dark areas. And again, I felt like the background isn't dark enough. These studies definitely aren't going to be perfect. Also in terms of the values, sometimes I hit it perfectly, but sometimes they don't look perfect in terms of the values as well. But that's fine, because, for example, if I know that it needs to be darker, but I don't feel like doing it again and darkening it again, that's good enough for me. I know I should darken it more. You see what I mean? I don't have to literally darken it more. The most important part is that I know that it's necessary. And then when I paint, I know that it's much darker than I imagined when I looked at the reference. That I should pay more attention to X, Y, Z, because it was a challenging part in the sketch itself. Okay? It just sort of helps you to know what to focus on. Just cut the recording for a moment there. Again, adding some darks into the very darks. This really helps bring out the shape. Sometimes it's not necessary, but in this case it is, because if you look at the reference, you can see this, especially on this area of the main house. You can see strong shadows in the shadows, and these really help to create the sense of depth that you are looking for. But when you put in, by the way, darks and darks, you want to make sure you don't do them too striking, because then they start overpowering the dark larger area, and you want to keep them very, very quick, because that's actually how we perceive them in our eyes. Okay, they're not very striking. There's no strong contrast. They aren't very detailed. Okay, just a few touches of shadow on that rightmost structure, and basically this sketch is done now. That's it. It's perfect. So friends, I hope you enjoyed this little process. Here's the final one. You can see it's rather small. I actually made another one prior to that one. Let me show you. So this is the one you saw in the video, and I also made this one earlier. And I just really liked it, but I also felt like I needed to go over it again to really feel confident. So I just decided to use that opportunity once I'm already a bit familiarized with the scene, to make another sketch and actually record it and show it to you. So anyway, I hope this was beneficial to you and it gives you some idea of how I prepare for a final painting. And yeah, this is it. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you still haven't, and also follow me on Snapchat and Instagram, where I share all of these, so this is really cool. Just the preparation and the stages, and you can see it in pictures. It's, I think, very fun. It has some value even over the videos. And this is it. I will see you again in another video tomorrow.